In the kitchen I grew up in, the trash can never held enough to fill a jar. What most people scrape into a bag now would have been 3 suppers under my mother's hand, and still would be. These meals did not begin during the Depression. The Depression only proved they already worked. Ours never fully let them go. I will show you a pie made without any fruit, a soup built from browned flour and water, and the supper of bread and milk that grown men still ask for. Stay with me. The last one, you already know it. Number 10. Vinegar pie. People today call it desperate. In our kitchen, it was Tuesday. My mother would make it in that lean stretch between the last of the canned peaches and the first berries, the weeks when the pantry got quiet and something still had to sit on the table after supper. Sugar, flour, water, a spoon of vinegar, a knob of butter, poured into a lard crust and baked until the top set glossy and pale. The smell was mostly the crust. The filling did the rest. Sharp on the first taste, then the sugar caught up and the whole thing settled somewhere close to a lemon pie without a lemon in the house. Store fruit killed it. Peaches in January made a pie with no fruit look like a trick. We kept making it. In kitchens like ours, a pie built out of nothing was never nothing. From the pantry to the garden. Number 9, onion pie. Not every pie was sweet. This one fed men who had been in the field since 4 in the morning, and they needed something that would still be working when the sun sat directly overhead. Onions pulled from the garden and cured on a shed rafter, sliced thin, sweated down in bacon fat until they went the color of dark honey. Egg and a little cream stirred through them, poured into a heavy crust, pepper on top, baked until the bottom went darker than the top. It smelled like a smokehouse and a garden at the same time. It cut in thick wedges, and it did not fall apart on a fork. Nobody made this to impress company. It was made to keep men working. Store bacon and freezer quiche took the shape and threw out the reason. From a pie built out of the garden to a soup built by hand. Convenience did not only replace cooking, it replaced the habit of looking at what you had and asking what it could still become. That is the loss underneath every dish on this list. Number 8, rivle soup. 4 ingredients: broth, flour, egg, corn. That is the whole recipe, and the recipe is the easiest part. Rivles are little lumps of egg and flour dough pinched between the thumb and forefinger, dropped straight into simmering chicken broth. Sweet corn goes in the same pot when it is in season, and dried or canned corn takes the place in winter. The rivles hold their shape without turning into noodles or dumplings. They land somewhere in between, and better than either. Children learned to pinch them before they learned to read a recipe card. A cook could tell whose child had been at the bowl by the size of the lumps. The recipe fits on a matchbook. The knowledge does not. Canned soup and unfamiliar hands took both. From a soup you built with your fingers to a breakfast built from an egg you did not have enough of. Number 7, egg gravy on toast. 1 egg fed 4 people this way. That was the whole trick. Butter or bacon fat melted in a skillet. A spoon of flour whisked through it. Milk poured in slow until it thickened to a pale gold gravy. A single beaten egg stirred through at the end, so quickly it never had a chance to scramble. Salt and a heavy hand of pepper, poured hot over toast cut from yesterday's loaf. The toast crackled under the ladle. The butter softened through the crust. Every plate looked like it had more egg on it than it had any right to. This was what the farm wife made on the mornings the hens were slow. It held a working body until noon, and no one at the table felt cheated out of breakfast. From a breakfast made without enough eggs to a cake made without any eggs at all. Number 6, depression cake. No eggs, no milk, no butter. A cake has no business tasting the way this one does. Flour, sugar, cocoa, salt, baking soda sifted straight into a pan. 3 little wells poked into the dry mix. 1 for oil, 1 for vinegar, 1 for cold water. Stirred with a fork right where it sat. Baked, cooled. Sometimes frosted, more often not. A knife cut squares straight out of the pan and set them on plates. The vinegar smell went into the oven and never came out again. What came out was a dark, tender, cocoa-warm cake that disappeared faster than the fancy ones. Thrifty cooks knew this chemistry long before hard times gave it a name. The country forgot when boxed mixes brought everything in one carton. Church cookbooks around here still print it, from a cake that used vinegar to a soup that used almost nothing. Number 5. Brown flour soup. 4 ingredients you can name on one hand: flour, fat, water, salt. The flour goes into a dry cast iron skillet and gets stirred with a wooden spoon until it turns the color of a paper bag, then the color of coffee with a little cream. That is where most people would give up. A tablespoon of fat goes in next, then water poured a little at a time so it does not clump. Pepper, salt. Some cooks whisk a beaten egg through it at the end. Others do not bother. The smell is deeper than it has any right to be. Something nutty, something almost roasted. People taste it and swear there must be meat in it. There is not. This is the supper my grandmother made on sick days and snow days, and any evening the pantry looked like it had nothing left. Flour, fat, and water. And still worth remembering. A heavy breakfast is not excess when the body has 6 hours of work ahead of it. And a thin supper is not deprivation when the whole day has already been fed. Thrift was never lack in our kitchen. It was a way of thinking. Number 4. Schnitz und Knepp. Dried apples were how you kept an orchard through February. You cut them into thin slices in September, laid them out on wooden trays, and by the time the first frost came, the crock in the pantry was full. In late winter, you reached in and pulled out what looked like brown leather. Then you turned it into supper. A smoked ham hock went into a pot with water. The dried apple slices, the schnitz, went in beside it and softened back into fruit as they simmered. When the broth turned salty sweet, soft dumpling batter, the Knepp, got dropped from a spoon straight onto the surface, covered and left alone until they cooked through. Sweet apple steam and salty pork in the same bite. The dish tastes like the end of a long winter, from a ham bone flavoring dried apples to a ham bone flavoring a pot of beans. Number 3. Ham bone bean soup. The bone was worth more than the ham. That was understood without ever being said. Sunday's ham came off the platter with meat still clinging to the bone in stubborn places. The bone did not go in the trash. It went into a bowl overnight beside a crock of navy beans covered in water. In the morning, both went into a heavy pot with a chopped onion, salt, pepper, and thyme. The pot sat on the back of the stove all day. By supper, the broth was smoky, and the beans had gone soft enough to spread on bread. The last pieces of ham fell off the bone and settled at the bottom of the ladle. The soup was better the next day. Boneless supermarket ham broke the chain. No bone, no soup. In kitchens like ours, nothing about a pig gets thrown out. The food did not fail. The schedule that needed it simply vanished. When the mornings got shorter and the tables got smaller, the dish had nowhere left to sit. Number 2. Pennsylvania Dutch chicken pot pie. This is not what the freezer aisle is selling. Let me be clear about that first. No crust, no little tin. It is a stew. An old stewing hen simmered until she was falling off the bone, potatoes and onions cut into thick pieces, and squares of rolled dough dropped in at the end to cook right in the broth. The dough squares are what makes it a pie. In our part of the country, that is what pie meant. Every family cut those squares a little differently. Some big and thick, some thin as an envelope. You could taste whose kitchen it came from before you asked. It went on the table for Sunday supper. It went to funerals under a clean cloth. One hen fed 10 people this way. Same name as the frozen version. Nothing else in common. From the supper that fed a full house to the one you made when there was almost nothing left. Number 1. Milk toast. Grown men in my family still asked for this. I mean grown men who had spent the day in the fields, walked in with dirt on their boots, sat down at the table and said, "Milch brat, milk toast." On cold nights, on the bad nights, and on the ordinary nights when they were just tired. 2 slices of bread, toasted dark, buttered while still hot, set in the bottom of a wide, shallow bowl. Warm milk poured over, enough to soften the edges but not drown the crust. Sometimes a spoon of sugar, sometimes salt and pepper instead. A spoon to break through the top. That is the whole supper. Modern culture decided a meal this plain must mean something was wrong. It never did. It fed the sick and the grieving and the exhausted and the very small, and no one at that table felt embarrassed about any of it. If you had a grandmother who loved you, you have probably eaten this. You may have forgotten it. Your body has not. That is the picture I would leave you with. A shallow bowl on a scrubbed wooden table, warm milk, 2 slices of buttered toast breaking apart under a spoon, a lamp turned low behind it, nothing else in the frame. These meals were never only about food. They were how you used what the farm gave you, how you got through the lean months, how you fed a working body before dawn, and how you took care of the people at your table when there was very little to work with. Tell me which one your mother or grandmother made. Tell me the one you loved and were almost embarrassed to admit. Tell me the one you had forgotten until just now, and which one you are going to make this week.